Hello.
Right.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so, right? So, tithing is something that the church does, but it is not connected to curse or curses. Why? Because a Christian cannot be cursed unless he tries to keep the law. So now, think about it. If someone says that if you don't pay your tithe, you're going to be cursed, and you believe them, and you try and keep the law, and you get cursed, you say, you see, it works, I'm cursed. Do you understand? That's why it seems to look like it works. But it's because of what you're believing and what you're putting yourself under.
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
And trust me, the devil loves that.
Yeah.
You just gave him everything on a plate. Okay? So, tithing was a shadow of the fullness we have in the New Testament. Okay? The fullness we have in the New Testament is abundant giving. Like 100% of you is God's.
Amen.
Everything you have is His. Okay? So, you become a steward of everything He has. Because everything you have is His and everything He has is yours. Because didn't He give you Himself?
Yes.
Amen. And we're going to deal with offering quickly. Just go to Genesis 1. No, 4. Sorry. We have to go after the 4. Genesis 4, we're going to read from verse 1. Now, Adam was very knowledgeable of Eve. No, I'm just kidding. He knew Eve. A very interesting fact about this word know, or knew, right, is that it's very similar to the word that's used when it says, eternal life is this, to know the one true God and the one whom He sent, Jesus Christ. It's the same experiential, intimateness that's used here. Very interesting. Now Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have gotten a man with the help of the Lord. And again, she bore his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a worker of the ground. Now, if you go and look back at what we were reading about the tithe, you'll see that the tithe had grain offerings, it had animal offerings. It wasn't just animals that were being given as an offering, right? This is the first offering, okay, in the Bible. Alright? Now, why did they make an offering? Think about that question. Why did they make an offering? Okay? Well, we're going to keep reading. And again, she brought Abel. Now, Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain was a worker of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground. Okay? In the course of time. So, let me ask you, does it sound like it was a patterned, periodic, regular thing, or there was something he did at some point? So it wasn't a patterned, regular, it wasn't a structured thing, it was a free will thing.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Yes.
Alright. And he brought him an offering of the fruit of the ground, right? And Abel also brought of the first fruits of his flock and of their fat portion. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. Okay? So God regarded Abel's offering, and he rejected Cain's offering. So here's the thing though, is that God rejected Cain's offering. So why would he reject Cain's offering and accept Abel's offering? Not really right. No. It was because of faith. Okay, Cain did not make his offering in faith. Abel made his offering in faith. Okay? So check what it says here. It says, so Cain was very angry and his face fell. And the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? Now, isn't that like a rhetorical question? God, you just rejected my offering. Why do you think my face has fallen? Yeah. Hello? Are you really God? I mean, am I hearing you? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
If you do well, watch this, God says to him, if you do well, right, will you not be accepted? If you do well, will you not be accepted? This is what God's telling Cain. So God isn't saying, okay, just because I rejected this offering doesn't mean I'm going to reject every offering. And just because I rejected the offering doesn't mean I rejected you.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
But you're taking it personally.
Yeah.
But you're the one who made this offering with no real trust that I was going to accept it. You know, you didn't put your faith into it. You didn't mix faith with it. You see that? And there's another scripture in the New Testament that says what I'm saying, okay? About the fact that the difference between Cain and Abel's offering was that Abel made it with faith and Cain did not. Alright? Alright? So, yeah, it was one of the apostles that said, so here's I'll find the reference later, I don't have it off by heart right now. Okay, so, does this make sense to you so far? So God is telling him that if he does well, he'll be accepted. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the offering wasn't not about being accepted. Isn't that right? If God says, if you make the offering, you'll be accepted, then isn't the offering about being accepted? Alright. Now watch what he says, and this is really, really interesting. Okay? He says, if you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. So now, yeah, sin is not an action. Sin is a person. A noun. Something that is crouching. Its desire is to have you. It wants you, but you must rule over it. And you're not supposed to become its slave, you're supposed to become its master. Do you see that? This is right from the beginning. This is in Cain and Abel's day. Okay? So yeah, the first offering results in the first murder. Right? Not a good track record to start with. Okay, so the word offering is used 504 times in the Bible, and the word offerings is used 210 times in the Bible. So it's quite a popular word used in the Bible, right? Okay. Go to Mark 12, verse 28. Mark 12. It's my favorite book. I don't know. Don't ask me why. Just Mark. Not why. Isn't that enough? I mean, look, I love the fact that I have a book named after him. And I understand why, because it's awesome. I mean, good. So, verse 28. And one of the scribes came up and heard them disputing with one another, and seeing that he answered them well, asked him, which commandment is the most important of all? Okay, so, it's always important to find out what's most important. What can we just get away with? What is the minimum we need to do so we can keep sinning and still get to heaven? That's so funny. Jesus answered, the most important is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than this. Right? There's no other commandment greater than this. And the scribe said to him, "You are right, teacher. You have truly said that he is one, and there is no other besides him. And to love him with all the heart and with all the understanding and with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself, is much more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices." Oops. Toe raak dit baie stil. Do you see that? What is he saying? He's saying that to obey the first two commandments is way more important than all the offerings and all the sacrifices. Have you ever heard the saying, God does not, or obedience is better than sacrifice? You've heard that? Why would it be that obedience is better than sacrifice? Why? Because if you're disobedient, you need a sacrifice to cleanse your disobedience, right? Yeah. So some poor, innocent creature has to keep dying because you just keep messing up on purpose because he is there. And so God looks at that and he goes, "That is a stench in my nostrils. I didn't give you sacrifices so you could just keep sinning and use animals as a way out. I gave it to you so that when you do sin, there is a way out." So obedience is better than sacrifice. And loving your neighbor as yourself, and loving the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength is greater than all offerings and all sacrifices. Why? Because you wouldn't need to make an offering and a sacrifice when your life is one. Okay, quickly, Romans 12. I'm jumping out of here to show you something cool. You guys all know about renewing your minds, right? It's like hot topic right now, right? Okay, so this is limited to this session only. I will not share this again. So you can be very happy that I'm sharing this right now. Okay? Okay, so watch this. Verse 1. Okay? "I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship." Then it says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by" what? "By the renewal of your mind." The word transformed there is borrowed, or not borrowed, it's from the word metamorpho, which means metamorphosis, or the changing of one thing into another. Have you ever seen those documentaries where they do that time-lapse video where you see the caterpillar go in and this cocoon comes out and then this beautiful butterfly pops out? It always puzzled me. Where did the butterfly come from? I mean, I saw a worm go in there, for goodness sake. Where was that butterfly? I mean, that's just magic. Anybody know where the butterfly came from? Someone sneak it in there. Tell me. Someone sneak it in. It was inside the worm.
Yeah.
So the worm had everything inside it needed for the butterfly to come out.
Yeah.
So when it says here, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, it says, let, by the renewing of your mind, that which is in you become an external reality. So if I say this to you in a kind of paraphrased version of the West, it would go like this. Do not conform to the external pattern of this world, living like them, okay, and adopting a behavior in keeping with their pattern, but rather allow the reality of who you are inside to become the pattern to which you conform externally.
Yeah.
That's what it's saying. So that's why you have a positional holiness, a positional righteousness that should become an experiential one. And the more convinced you are of what you have, the more likely you are to live it. Right? It's just about being convinced of what you have, so you'll live from what you have rather than living to get something you already got.
Yeah, come on.
Most people are trying to get something God already gave them. And he's like, one day they'll read this. And then they'll go, where's this been all my life? And he goes, it's always been there. I even wrote in this book that my people perish for lack of knowledge. And they still don't get. It's in here. And by the way, you don't need the word to get into your spirit. You need the spirit to come out by your mind lining up with the word.
Yeah.
You need to empower your spirit to rule your soul by aligning your mind up with what God's word says. Yeah, that's all free. Jumping back. Luke 21. And he looked up and he saw the rich man casting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw also a certain poor widow casting in 2 mites. And he said, Jesus, of a truth I say unto you, that the poor widow has cast in more than all of them. Now, hold on a second. Like, imagine, right? The disciples are sitting with Jesus, and Jesus is watching people putting money into the plate, right? Into the offering thing. And he sees all these rich people come and bring these huge gifts, right? And this little lady, I imagine her as a very skinny, kind of scrawny lady, maybe bent over a little bit, like walking, shuffling, being, and then she's got like this little bit of money, and she's like, it's like finished. Gone. You know what I mean? Like, if I had a video of it, that's exactly how it would look. And then Jesus goes, that's it. She gave more than everyone. I'm like, what are you talking about? Really? Yes. Do you know why? Because she gave everything she had. She gave everything she had. She gave more than everyone. I was driving home. I wasn't driving. I was being chauffeured home by a friend. And we were chatting about some of these things. And he was just sharing with me about some of these very wealthy people and their philanthropy and how they give and stuff like that. And there was this one guy that owns like all these oil fields. And he's worth like 25 billion. So you said 125 billion?
30 billion.
$30 billion or something. And that's like stacks of money, right? The wealth of the sinner is still for the righteous. Don't you forget it.
Yeah.
So, okay. So just remember, there is a transfer of wealth because it all belongs to us already. Yeah. So watch this. So this guy, okay, he's given away in the last, was it a year? In the last year, was it 25? $25 million. So he's got 30 billion, but he's given away 25 million. Okay? And everyone wants to give him a Nobel Peace Prize or some prize for philanthropy prize for giving this sum of money. Now, the money is a lot of money, but compared to how much he's making, it's like it's like if you had $100 it's like
less than 1%.
It's like $1,000, if you had 100 rand, it's like 1 rand you're giving into the ocean of need. Okay? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
But then there was this other guy, a South African guy, who was, and his value, how much did you say it was?
It's Francois Fenique.
Yeah.
He gave away 170 million.
Yeah.
But he's worth maybe only 400 or 500 million.
Okay, so he's given away like at least a quarter of what he's worth.
He promises to give 30% away of what he's worth.
And he actually was broke. Okay? He had this one idea. He said, God, I will give 30% of what I earn back to the advancement of the gospel if you help me prosper. And he gives 30%, and he's a multi-millionaire. So think about it. He's proven that you can't outgive God.
Amen.
It's such a simple principle. And this guy, in my book, is way richer than the other guy. Because he gave away 5 times more than what the other guy gave, who has 100% more than him. Who's rich? Who's making a bigger difference in the world? You understand what I'm saying? So for me, and I know for God, it's not about how much money you accumulate, it's how much money you can distribute. Okay? He wants you to be abundant channels. Now, I promise you, you'll never be a channel through which God pours finances through as long as you think that you're in lack. Because you're basically thinking, I'm a drought. Where's some rain? Right? But if you're a cloud, you bring the rain. Does it make sense?
Yes.
I know I'm using these really kind of strange examples, but I'm hoping that they help you anchor abundance versus lack. A scarcity mentality will always produce a projection of you to others that you are begging. And the minute how many of you are very attracted to beggars? I mean, the minute you see a beggar, you're like getting excited. Anybody? To a large, listen, when a beggar comes to your window, you have compassion on them, you bless them, I get that. But I mean, you don't go looking for them, right? You don't go, I need to find a beggar now. You don't do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and why? Because when a beggar comes up to your window, for most people, when a beggar comes to the window, they are a threat to your abundance. Are you with me? When they come up to the window, they are a threat to your abundance. They are going to take something away from you feel you need. And people respond negatively to that when they operate from the carnal mind. Do you understand? Because the carnal mind thinks, what should I do with this person? Is he going to give something to me? Is he going to take something from me? Or should I just get rid of him? That's how the carnal mind thinks. And so what do? We go, right? Or we reach into our pockets where we keep all the small change, and then suddenly a note comes up. No. Isn't it? That scarcity mentality is what keeps us away from being abundant in how we live. Okay? It's a threat to self. Okay? And you have to learn to dominate it. Okay? Okay, I know we kind of got a bit of a sidetrack there, but I think it's a good thing. Okay? Right. So this woman gave more than anyone. Why? Because she gave everything. In Hebrews 10:5-8 it says, wherefore when he comes into the world, he said, sacrifice and offering thou would not, but the body thou hast prepared for me. I'm going to read this in the ESV because it makes a lot more sense. So, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's good.
Hebrews 10.
5.
We're not going to read from 5.
One.
I'm going to read from 1 because I like context. Right, so verse 1. For since the law has but a shadow of the good things to come instead of the true form of these realities. So everything I told you about shadow, I wasn't making it up. It's right here. Okay? Thank you, Holy Ghost. It's there. Okay? It can never, by the same sacrifices that are continually offered every year, make perfect those who draw near. It can never. So in other words, the sacrificial system could never actually purify you of sin. It wasn't able to. It never could. So when they made sacrifices in the Old Testament, it was only a token, okay? In other words, a symbol of what they were trusting in. They would ultimately trust in the only one who would be able to take away the sins of the world. That's the Lamb of God who was slain before the foundations of the earth. Does it make sense? So everyone in all of time in the past have all been forgiven by sacrifice because Jesus became the sacrifice that they needed, but they applied their faith on an animal as a representation of what Jesus was going to do. I'm going to read that now. You'll see. It's in you. Okay. So, otherwise, these worshippers, would they not have ceased to offer, since the worshipper, having once been cleansed, would no longer have any consciousness of sin? So hold on, there would no longer be need for an offering when you no longer have consciousness of sin. Okay. But in these sacrifices, there is a reminder of sins every year. For it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. Consequently, when Christ came into the world, he said, sacrifices and offerings you have not desired. In other words, God didn't want sacrifices and offerings. Why? Because he had prepared a sacrifice. And that's why it says, but a body you have prepared for me. In other words, Jesus was born into a body. His body would become that sacrifice. So a body you prepared for me. In burnt offerings and sin offerings, you have taken no pleasure. So God hasn't taken any pleasure in any of the death of the animals that were sacrificed in order to cover over people's sin. He didn't take pleasure in those things that were necessary for the time. You understand? Then I said, behold, I have come to do your will, O God, for it is written of me in the scroll of the book. When he said above, you have neither desired nor taken pleasure in sacrifices and offerings, and burnt offerings and sin offerings, these are offered according to the law. Then he added, behold, I have come to do your will. He does away with the first in order to establish the second. And by that will, we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once and for all. So do you notice that will that he was going to do? It says, I've come to do your will. That will that he's come to do is to offer himself as a sacrifice. Okay? So Jesus became your offering. And every priest stands daily in his service, offering repeatedly the same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. But when Christ had offered for all time a single sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God, waiting from that time until his enemies should be made a footstool for his feet. For by a single offering, he has perfected for all time those who are being sanctified. And the Holy Spirit also bears witness of this. For after that, saying, this is the covenant that I will make with them. After those days, declares the Lord, I will put my laws on their hearts, and I will write them in their minds. And he adds, I will remember their sins and their lawless deeds no more. Where there is forgiveness of these, there is no longer any offering for sin. That's the gospel right there. Right? Do you understand what's going on? So, you can see that Jesus gave himself. He gave everything. Isn't that right? And he was the only one who could take away sin. And where there is no longer a need for offering, why? Because sins have been dealt with. Does it make sense? Okay, so really what you're doing when you do what we call offering is you are saying thank you. Are you with me? It's giving. Everything in the New Testament ends up being given. Does that make sense? Because you're not making an offering to God. Does it make sense what I'm saying here? Yeah. Jesus became the one and only offering for all offerings for all time. Okay? So there is no need for an offering. But being a giver, being giving, That's the administration of the kingdom. Does that make sense? Okay. In Genesis 8:22 it says, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest time, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. So we know that there's a law of sowing and reaping, and you can enact that law. Now, I've spoken about this briefly last night. For those of you who are here that weren't there, and those of you who are here that were there, I'm going to repeat it. So, this is what is being said here. That the law of sowing and reaping will be around as long as the earth remains. People even in modern day business know this. If anyone knows Robert Kiyosaki, you'll know that he encourages people to give money away. Why? Because he knows that if you give it away, it finds its way back to you. It's a law. He doesn't even have to have faith in God to know that gravity works. You don't need to have faith in God to know that sowing and reaping works. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, he will also reap. Right? So it's important that we understand that sowing and reaping does work. Okay? However, there is always seed time and harvest time. Okay? So, if there is seed time and harvest time, then between the seed being sown and it being germinating and it growing and producing a crop that you can then use, between that time is a mean time. Okay? It's a mean. And depending on how long that takes, you know, if you need a harvest now and you haven't sown for it, you're in trouble. Okay? So, seed time and harvest time works, sowing and reaping works, but you need to be, okay, look, if you're living a lifestyle of sowing, it's going to be easy because you're always going to be reaping. But if you haven't, that's the hard part. Okay? And so God has made a better way in that He's made the kingdom available. I read that earlier, where we clearly show that God is taking great pleasure in giving us the kingdom. So the kingdom principle works differently to sowing and reaping. Okay? It works on the fact that you are a son and God is your father. And a father will look after his son. So you ask your father what you need, and your father will give you what you need. And you make sure that what you need includes something that you want to give. Right? So that you can start being a giver. So that you can start being a good steward of the kingdom. And then you won't have a problem with the harvest, right? Anyway. Okay, so Matthew 6:24-34. No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and he will love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor your body what you shall put on it. It's not life more than meat, and the body more than raiment. And then he says, behold, the fowls of the air, they do not sow, nor do they reap, nor they gather into barns. So the sowing and reaping principle is not working for them, and the saving principle is not working for them. Are you with me? They fly about, flapping their wings, they find food everywhere. Okay? They don't gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more better than they? Are you not more valuable than the birds?
Yes, I am.
Okay? Which of you, but taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto his stature? In other words, how many of you have ever lengthened your life by being anxious? Nobody? Okay? So, you don't want to live that way. The fear is very, very negative, and it's a powerful force. It's as powerful as faith, and it will destroy you. Fear is not where you want to live. And often, when we're stepping out into areas where we trust in God, there can be a very fine line between where fear ends and faith ends and fear starts. You know?
Yeah.
So we need to always make sure that as we step out, we're stepping out in faith, but we're not stepping out and then falling into fear.
Yeah.
You don't want to fall into fear. So if you're going to step out and stand. Don't back off. Don't get pushed over. Don't get swayed. No matter how bad it looks, keep standing until it changes. Otherwise, you're in for a really bad ride. The minute the devil knows he can push you back, every time you try, he will push you back. But the minute you give him grief, he doesn't know what to do with it. Okay? And then, trust me, it's a lot better. Amen? Alright, Luke 12:15. It's the same story. I'm going to read this in the ESV. It's the same thing that Jesus said. I'm just going to reiterate this for your benefit. Luke 12, verse 15. Okay, so he says here, and he said to them, take care and be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. So your abundance is not in your possessions, your abundance is in God.
Yeah.
Alright? And he told them a parable, saying, the land of a rich man produced plentifully, and he thought to himself, what shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops. I've got so much, I don't know what to do. And he said, I will do this. I will tear down my barns, and I will build greater and larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you are ample, goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. So everything you think you're amassing, do you know it means nothing if your life's gone? Right? If your existence is ended, then it means nothing. You can have kabillions and die, and then it means nothing. Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I made up that word. It's cool, huh? Okay, so does that make sense? So it's not about having masses of money. I'm not saying don't have stored money. I'm not saying that at all. This guy had said, I've got plenty for plenty of years. I'm not going to do anything else but just kick back and relax. Well, he didn't even consider what about the poor people who don't have, you know? What about the people that live in slumlord and don't have a place to live and don't have food and you spend bad money and stuff. Anyway, so, right. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Then it says in verse 22, and he said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat, or about your body and what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens, they neither sow nor reap, they neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his lifespan? If then you are not able to do as small a thing as that, why are you anxious about the rest? Consider the lilies and how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass, which is alive in the field today, and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you? Oh, you of little faith. And yeah, it says that, eh? Even today, oh, you of little faith. And we go like, oh, Jesus. Please. Mercy. Right? And do not seek what you are to eat and what you are to drink, nor be worried. For all the nations of the world seek after these things, and your Father knows that you need them. Instead, seek his kingdom, and these things will be added to you. You do what? Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. So you seek first the what? Okay. As you can see, we're getting into the kingdom principle here. Can you see that? So here we come into the kingdom principle, and then immediately after this, he says, sell your possessions and give to the needy. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in heaven that does not fail, where no thief approaches nor moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. You see, if your treasure is in heaven, then your heart is in heaven. If your heart is in heaven, then you know where your abundance comes from. Your abundance comes from heaven. It doesn't come from your bank account.
Yeah.
The first night you all took out your wallets. What did you say?
This is not my source.
Not my source.
This wallet is not my source. This wallet is a temporary manifestation of the abundance that is available to me in heaven. It is only a momentary manifestation. Like when you lay hands on the sick and the person gets healed, that's a manifestation of healing. Is that all the healing in the whole world?
No.
Is heaven suffering from load shedding? No. Right? We have better government there.
Amen.
Yeah, I almost said something. Jesus.
Love.
We will sort out the prince of darkness. Alright, so you want to store up your treasure in heaven because where your treasure is there, your heart is also. Now, if He's given you the kingdom, and the kingdom is like heaven, right? And the streets are made of gold, it's kind of rich. Just a tad. God isn't wasteful, He's extravagant, that's okay.